WQUN. The opinions expressed on the following program do not reflect the opinions of the staff or management of WQUN or those of Quinnipiac University.
And good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Reporter at Large. I'm your host, John DeAndre, and with me this morning we have New Haven West Haven State Senator Gary Winfield. Our discussion is race relations. Good morning, Senator Winfield.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
Our first question, the issue was brought up, I think by maybe Senator Blumenthal, about exporting community-based policing. New Haven serves as a model. It did in the 90s as well, as community-based policing, and maybe possibly ponying it across the country. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
Yeah, so I heard the comment, and I think I had a different reaction than a lot of people. I think a lot of people thought that would be an excellent idea. I think why we're talking about exporting community policing is in response to the schism you see between mostly communities of color and the police. Because of what communities of color see as these issues of police shootings that aren't addressed. I don't believe that the exportation of community policing is the answer to that. I think what is assumed, because there hasn't been at least visible strife in New Haven, is that something about the method of policing is working. This is what I would say to that. Many of the people who I talk to in the community like community policing because it's better than broken windows policing, because it's better than what feels like a siege of the community. But community policing is not what you think of when you think of safe white communities. When you think of those communities, you think very little of police. You think police come into those communities and respond to an action. And when they come into those communities, even if they don't spend all of their time in those communities, they somehow figure out how to operate within those communities. And if the person who called them doesn't find themselves in a situation where they're on the wrong end of the relationship with the police. And so when I hear a person who's an elected official talking about community policing as the solution to what this country is talking about right now, what goes on in my mind is, what is the difference between the communities, and why do you think the answer in one community is one thing and the answer in another community is a different thing?
Looking at New Haven, it's a small city compared to cities like Cleveland and Detroit. So maybe it works for New Haven, but it might not work for them.
But I would say I don't think that community policing works for anyone. I think look, I'm not denigrating community policing. What I'm suggesting is that community policing allows elected officials not to deal with the problems of the community. If you think about what the police chief in Dallas said, he said, look, all of the problems we have in this country, we forced upon the police, and we wonder why police interact with communities so much. And so the problems that we have in certain communities that historically have been redlined, that have very little economic opportunity, that are compressed, that don't have educational systems that their children feed into, that push back out children who are properly educated, we deal with that by having police in the community. And so what we now have said is, the form of policing we used to have is not working, so let's get a better form of policing. But it still means that community is over-policed. And what I'm suggesting to this country is that we need to get away from over-policing and get into problem-solving.
So it's more like an over-reliance or a crutch for those neighborhoods.
I absolutely think that it is a crutch. Again, if the answer in communities where the things that aren't present in those communities that are over-policed is not to have police, then I don't think it needs to be the answer in those communities of color. And I think people who are elected need to be about the business of making sure that these neighborhoods don't look the way they look, that the historical things that have made them what they are dealt with. And that's the difficult work of what people like myself do.
So basically, community policing is keeping law and order, but yet those communities aren't getting healthier or getting stronger on their own.
No, they're not getting healthier or stronger on their own, or with the assistance of government. They're in a steady state that is not positive. And so you have police who know the community, and so they can come and just arrest the bad guys, air quotes. But these bad guys aren't born bad guys. They're born into a system, even if we don't see the system, and that system produces certain things. And in one neighborhood, it produces the person who we think needs to interact with the police, and in another neighborhood, it produces somebody who goes on to do the things that we think are normal. But that isn't just that person was born bad. That person was born into a system that is more likely to produce those results.
So it's about getting the neighborhoods on their feet and getting rid of community policing.
Listen, again, while we're working on one thing, community policing is a better form than broken window. So I'm not suggesting that I'm out to destroy community policing right now. But what I'm pushing back against is the notion that it is the answer.
Okay, considering what's happened in the last month or so around the country, New Haven has stayed relatively quiet.
Well, relatively, but if you think about it, New Haven's had several protests led by the young women who have come to the forefront as activists and organizers in the Black Lives Matter New Haven organization. There's a young woman and two young women actually who are part of the Narrative Project who've done some work. You'll notice a theme: a lot of young women. Who've been able to get people to come out and express themselves. And when you listen to what people are saying there, they're not just talking about what's happening nationally. They're talking about experiences they've had even locally that we don't always talk about. So, yeah, New Haven seems relatively peaceful, but there are issues in New Haven. And there are issues, quite frankly, just like we have nationally between Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter in New Haven. There was a rally at Barrett Church. There wasn't All Lives Matter, but there was a lot of that sentiment there. And if you talk to people in the crowd, there was some level of discord because of that. And so this is something that we're wrestling with both nationally and here in the city of New Haven and in the state of Connecticut.
Even though it's 2016, and we're in the 21st century, there's still a large group in New Haven that's disenfranchised from the rest of the city and the rest of the state, for that matter. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think you just grow past a problem like this. This is a problem that is endemic to this country. The first slave was here in 1619. We're here. It is 2016. We're almost at 2019. 400 years. You can't just have had slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, unequal laws, inequality of the various forms that we've had racially, and there's inequality based on class. You can't just have those things, and all of a sudden, the people who were directly affected by that and then vestigially affected by that are on equal footing and ready to go. So, of course, in this city and across the country, we still have a lot of people who aren't where they need to be, and the perpetuation of that history is going to continue because for generations the family has been affected by it. And so anyone who thinks, well, it's 2016, let's all just start running, and if we work hard, we'll be where we need to be, has just not paid attention to the history of this country.
What's it going to take for that population group to get like a step up? I hate to use this term, but it's almost like they're caught in the poverty cycle.
Well, I mean, I think to some degree that is the case. If your mother went to a school that was bound to fail her, and her mother went to a school that was bound to fail her, that doesn't mean you can't be successful, but it makes it a lot harder. When I was a kid, I grew up in a housing project in the Bronx. The 5 minutes before I did my homework included me standing in a lobby where there wasn't a light, and going up an elevator where there wasn't a light, and there was usually human urine there. And sometimes I was worried about a person riding on top of the elevator waiting to see if there was a victim in the elevator or going up the stairs.